Greetings YouTube, thanks for tuning in to Moodog's Frugal RCs and more. Today we're going to be looking at a tried but true quintessential beginner's quadcopter. And I'll put a link in the description below if you guys want to check it out. I got this on Amazon.com and I bought it in a special configuration. Let's have a look. Stay tuned. All right, so the special configuration that I got this in, this particular one is quadcopter only. No camera, no transmitter. I believe it includes a battery, and let's have a look at the box just to see what it includes. Like I mentioned before, this is the quintessential beginner's quadcopter, and sorry about my camera not going out of focus there. This is the quintessential beginner's quadcopter. Pretty much the same as every other quadcopter in this price range, and a lot of other companies have been mimicking this, actually stealing designs. China is one of those countries that really doesn't have anything, any regard for copyrights or patents, so they kind of trade things off. This has the 6-axis stabilization, so nice stable flight. Does the 360 eversions, which is basically your flips and your side barrel rolls. It is HD cam equipment compatible. In other words, there's a port underneath the body of this quadcopter to accept the HD camera. Again, not included with this particular package. Side of the box has the X5C quadcopter printing. Back side of the box basically is just your own space in the sky, kind of their mantra, their logo type of thing, and you have a UPC symbol on there. The other side of the box shows the same basic X5SC. This is the SC. Now this is a little bit different yet. I think this one, I'm not quite sure what the S stands for, but this is the SC it's showing on this side. So it's basically kind of a dual purpose package, but it shows this one is shown in black. So let's go ahead and get this box open, and we can kind of go from there and see what we've got here. So 1 second and I'll get this thing popped open. All right, let's dig in here and see what we've got. Okay, so pretty much standard stuff for the SYMA. We're looking at your manual. Again, the SYMA manuals are generally pretty good. Not a lot of surprises as far as trying to decipher poor Chinese to English translations. Everything is laid out nicely. It shows a transmitter on here. This is pretty much the generic version of the kind of one-size-fits-all manual here. This is actually showing the transmitter, which in this particular case is not included, but I'm going to show you later on what I'm going to be using for this quadcopter. And yeah, like I said, so everything is pretty much well laid out with the instructions on these. There's a parts blow up and parts list here. What's nice about the SYMA quads, whether it be the X5 series or the X8 series, all of these parts are replaceable and plentifully available. So you can find them online pretty much anywhere. I just happen to do a lot of my shopping for my RC stuff on Amazon. Some people may like to go directly to the Chinese distributors. Issue with the Chinese distributors, if anything ever goes wrong with the quad or you have a question on it, it's really hard to get any kind of satisfaction with returns or things of that nature. But it's a good thing to have this around to kind of give you some ideas, especially if you're new, you know, in order to put the prop guards on and the landing gear and stuff like that. We're going to go through that in the video, so just stay tuned for that. But yeah, this is a good thing to have around. So they give you that. Obviously, then you get the quadcopter, and we'll take a closer look at that in just a minute. But as per normal, SYMA really does a good job with their packaging. Everything is stowed underneath. I showed in my video with the unboxing of the X8C and how they really take advantage of the space for their packaging. And I'll put a link in the description down below for that video, and you guys can check that out if you'd like. But what we're getting here is going to be, I believe we got prop guards here, and it's pretty much taped. There we go. Let's get that out of the way. So we've got our prop guards. Go ahead and get this open here. There we go. There we are. All right, so we've got our prop guards, and looks like I mentioned before, the landing gear. Prop guards already have the hardware installed. In other words, you have screws already installed. Let me get this paper out of the way here, plastic out of the way. So you've got 4 prop guards, and I'll be showing you guys how to install those in just a minute here. We also have the landing gear, and I'll be doing the installation on that. We'll do a power up on this as well to show you the binding procedure, and I'll be showing you what transmitter I'm going to be using for this quadcopter to get it up in the air. So those things are included in the package, and then we have the actual quadcopter itself. Now, anybody out there that has flies quads or knows anything about this type of RC vehicle knows that SYMA is pretty much, like I've said it again, I'm going to say it for probably the 4th time, the quintessential beginner quadcopter. The X5C has been around for probably 4 years. I'm taking a shot at it, taking a guess. Very, very stable platform, very easy to fly. You modify these things with other cameras, aftermarket cameras. Parts are readily available, so if anything crashes on this or breaks on this, motors are easy to replace. The props are easy to find and easy to replace. Everything on this quadcopter is completely replaceable, which is a really nice thing. So let's go ahead and get this thing assembled, and we'll power it up, and we'll go ahead and start up the motors. Hang on one second, guys. All right, so as mentioned before, I kind of had a question whether or not this one included a battery, and upon opening the battery hatch on the bottom, it indeed does. This is going to be your standard 1S micro low-C connector, and we're looking at a 3.7 volt 500 milliamp hour battery. What's nice about the SYMA itself is you can run a bigger battery in there. You can run probably an 850. I've seen some guys put 1200 milliamp hour batteries in some of these quads. Don't know for sure on the X5C, but the X5 SW, I believe there is a couple of videos out there with guys running 1200 milliamp hour 3.7 volt batteries and getting some really good flight time on these. Flight time on this bird is going to be roughly 5 or 6 minutes, maybe a little bit longer if you don't run the prop guards when you're flying and there is no camera. So if you're not taking power from the battery to run the camera and you're not having extra wind resistance with the prop guards, you should be good to go to get maybe 7 or 8 minutes of flight time. So on the bottom of the quadcopter is the battery hatch, and the battery was stowed in there where I found it. So here's where your camera would clip on if you had the camera for it. I'm not going to bother with that. I'm going to modify this one and probably use like a run cam or something along those lines, or maybe even a keychain cam. But basically what you would do is just press back on this to dislodge it. There we go. And this whole shoot and match opens up here. And then on the inside, you have your cable, and I'll go ahead and get my screwdriver here to kind of fish this cable out of here. And they tend to sometimes stick these in there pretty good, where you have to fight at them to get them out of here. And this is just such the case. Bear with me while I grab this out of here, and I'll be right back, guys. Okay, my fault. It appears that the connector, the actual jack for the battery connection is already built in, so the wires are actually coming out, and then you would just plug right into this orifice here. Okay, if you can see that or not. I'll see if I can get that to focus. Yeah, it's not really focusing that well. Sorry about that. But yeah, the connector is right here. So essentially what you would do is, what I usually do is I make sure that the power is off on this one. And there is a power switch right on the back of the quadcopter itself. And it looks to be in the, really don't see it on or off designation. We're going to go ahead and turn it to the left, and hopefully it's in the off position. I like to put the battery in with the power off on the quadcopter. It just seems safer to me. It may not be, but it's just kind of one of those things that seems safer to me. And you would just follow the shape of the connector to the shape of the jack on the bottom side of the quad here. And we'll go ahead and plug that guy in, and good, it is off. And then you just throw your battery on the inside here, slide it in. And it appears that you're going to be a little bit maybe limited more so on this one as to what size battery you can pop in here. But I would venture to guess you could probably fit a 650 or even a 750 milliamp hour battery in this hole here. So let's go ahead and slide that back into place again. Now the battery is in. And first thing we're going to do with this thing, guys, is get the landing gear on. Now, it already has these little pods on the end here, but there are some feet that fit in these holes right here on the bottom side of the quadcopter. And landing gear is nothing more than just plugging in. Again, when you're putting this stuff on, you want to make sure the finished side is facing out. So it would be looking like this. You don't want to try putting it on like that. It's not going to fit, for one thing, and if you try forcing the issue, you're going to end up breaking something. So just a kind of a common sense call here, so really no instruction needed. But these just fit in these holes here. These little pins fit in the holes, and they press fit in. There's no hardware included to fix these on here. You just pretty much pressure them in there, and that's it. Now, I may fly with this landing gear on. I may take it off because it does have these little extensions underneath the motor pods. And I can show you right now that these motor pods are open on the bottom, and you can actually see the gears. And I'll show you that as soon as I get this piece of landing gear on here. The reason I'm pointing this out, guys, is not a good idea to fly and land in sandy conditions if you can avoid it, or any kind of loose dirt conditions. What's going to happen is, over time, because this is a gear driven and not a direct drive, in other words, the prop is not attached directly to the motor shaft. It's attached to a gear that runs off a small little pinion here. You can see the little pinion gear right here, and then the large drive gear here. Well, this drive gear is what actually moves the prop. This little pinion gear is the one that's attached to the bottom of the motor. So you want to make sure that when you're landing these things, that you take some care as to where you're landing them, if possible. And for newbies, might be kind of tough. You may end up crashing. In fact, you probably will crash this thing. Not to worry about durability. But again, if you're crashing it in sand or along a beach type area, these will get gunked up and bunged up with sand and grit. Good idea to blow them out. Pretty easy to take this thing apart. There is an exploded view inside the manual to show you how to do that, and there's probably tons of videos online to show that as well here on YouTube. If you guys want to see a teardown of this or motor swap or motor removal, leave a comment in the comment section below, and I'll see about getting a video put together for you to show you that. But that's just a little bit of a caution there to kind of watch where you're landing this thing. And this is what it's going to look like with the landing gear on. Okay, so you can see from the side view, kind of a nice looking little quad. Very well built, very durable. These things are durable. They're built for beginners, so they're really going to take a good whack and come back and asking for more. Again, the props on these things are really inexpensive to replace. Any part on this quad is replaceable, up to and including the motors as well as the drive and pinion gear. So that's kind of a nice thing to know, and parts are readily available. The next thing we're going to do is go ahead and get the prop guards attached, and I'll be right back and I'll show you how to do that. All right, guys, so putting the prop guards on is a pretty easy affair. Again, much like the landing gear, you're looking at 2 mounting holes on here. Actually 3 if you count the screw hole, but 2 mounting holes that'll accept the pins that are actually molded onto the prop guard themselves. And what we're going to do with this situation is kind of follow the contour here, and we're going to go ahead and pop these in to the holes here. Make sure they're seated all the way down. And then there's a screw in the center already in there, so you don't have to place it in. It's already there for you out of the package. And you're going to go ahead and just tighten this down and get that tight to the point. You're not building a bridge here, so use your discretion as how tight you're going to make this. You just snug it down to where you start feeling resistance and then stop. Otherwise, you will strip the soft plastic out. And I'll go ahead and I'll put the rest of them on off camera, and we'll be right back to take a look at it again. All right, guys, that's it. All the prop guards are on. Everything is tight. That's what your quadcopter is going to look like completely assembled. Again, this has no camera. So if you buy the complete kit with the transmitter and the camera, your camera is going to get attached underneath on the bottom side right here. There's a clip and then 2 holes that the pins on the bottom of the camera assembly would fit into, and everything just kind of slides together that way. Now, we talked about earlier I kind of hinted around as to what I'm going to be flying this with, what transmitter. I mentioned that a lot of guys are using the jumper transmitters to bind their quadcopter and fly with that. That's all well and good, but you're still looking at $100 transmitter. Now, $100 investment for a transmitter that'll fly a multitude of different protocols. Protocols is basically the programming that's in the receiver, the electronics, in other words, inside the quadcopter itself. So the jumper transmitter, all being of $99 or $100 and some dollars, sometimes $120 or more, depending on where you buy it. For the transmitter itself, seems like a bit of an investment. But you know, once you get into the hobby a little bit more, you may find that a viable option for you. I don't. I tend to be in a frugal side, hence the name of my channel. So what I've done is I'm going to go ahead and use my transmitter from my SYMA X8C. Now, this is the same protocol. The X8C and the X5C use the same protocol. So the same, pretty much, electronics are in on the inside of this as they are in the X8C. Maybe not same size. Some things might be different because you're running different size motors, but essentially all the commands that the transmitter will send to the quadcopter are the same and work the same for both the X5C and the X8C. So with that being said, this is the transmitter that you guys may have seen the video, and I'll put a link in the description for the video if you guys want to check it out, of the modified SYMA X8C transmitter that I recently did a video on. This has got the modified 5 dB antenna on it for extended range. Now I'm going to be using this with this quad, and it should work fine. Let's go ahead and see if we can get this thing binded up, and we'll go ahead and look at the lights on it. It does have lights on the underside on all 4 motor pods, so we are looking at red lights in the front, or orange, however they show up, and then green in the back, which to me is a little on the backward end, but that's what we have, so you'll be able to distinguish it from there. And there's things that you can do too, as a side note, to make this more easy to keep orientation of. Not only does this transmitter offer a headless mode, which I don't really recommend getting into using headless mode. You want to make sure that you're learning how to fly this and throttle control and all those things. This is a fully manual quadcopter, so you have no altitude hold. This is basically just you and the sticks. The way to learn, best way to learn, in my opinion. So you are going to be in complete control of this particular quadcopter. Now, there are, like I said, I started to mention, there are ways to be able to, designate front from rear when you're flying full manual without using your headless mode, and that is you can replace these front props with colored ones, and they sell a multitude of different colors for this particular bird, and you can actually change out your prop guards if you're flying with those. If you feel more comfortable flying with those, you can put paint dabs or whatever you want it to do on the front to show the front. Now, this isn't going to have a camera on it, so it's going to be even more difficult to distinguish what's the front from the rear when you're maybe 70 or 80 feet up in the air. So that being said, let's go ahead and get this thing powered on and see exactly what we have here. So what I'm going to do first, I'm going to turn the quadcopter on, and we can see that we have flashing orange in the front, flashing green in the back. That says that the quadcopter is on and ready for a command. First thing we're going to do is, well, let me do this first. Let me actually move my camera up just a little bit. Second thing we're going to do is go ahead and turn on our transmitter. And to bind the quadcopter, you would go up and then down. And you can see the lights are now stationary, which says, that tells us that the quadcopter is now bound to the transmitter, or vice versa. So what I'm going to do now is what I do with all my brushed quadcopters. This is a brush motor quadcopter. Good idea to break in the motor. So what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and start the motors up. Slow. And I'm going to let them run. Now again, I'll let this run probably most of the battery. Now the battery that came in here is probably partially charged, so I'll let the battery run out and till the quad actually shuts itself down, or about 4 to 5 minutes depending on whichever comes first. And I'll let that run, break the motors in, and then you're good to go. Breaking the motors in, again, I mentioned it in my X8C video, that breaking the motors in is going to do nothing more than help those motors, brushes break in against the motors and actually prolong the life of those motors. Very readily available to replace the motors. All the parts on here are replaceable, but why push it? Why not get the most amount of enjoyment out of what came stock with it? I'm all about getting the most bang for the buck. We'll go ahead and turn that off to finish the rest of the video. So that's basically how I'm doing it. Now you guys can go out and purchase the transmitter for this. If you have an X8C or have an X5C already transmitter and you crashed it, this is a really good purchase. Amazon.com, I'll put a link in the description. $19.22 with Prime shipping. I got it same day. I ordered some other stuff, so I ordered it this morning and got it this afternoon. Great little quad. I'm going to take it out now and fly, and going forward, look for some flight videos as soon as I get a hat cam or a head cam system set up, and look for some more in-depth reviews and unboxings. If you guys have any suggestions for the channel, don't forget to leave a comment in the comment section below. If you like it, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button, and we'll see you all in the next one. God bless the Republic.